Well, it's fantastic to welcome you all to the line. It's really great every Friday that we can come together like this. It's one thing we've got a certainty in our world at the moment. So welcome everyone. It's Natalie Ashdown here with you as always. And today our Coaching Cafe is focused on coaching through change. Should we throw out all the models, all our change models, everything that we've depended upon until now? In these times of change, I was starting to think, should we throw out the models or do they still have value to us? So that's our topic for today, and I can see the experience and the great coaches we've got on the line, so I'd be really keen to hear what you think as we go through. We have probably bitten off more than we can chew in just this half hour, because I would actually like to take a look at Kotter, Prosci and Tuckman, so we'll see how far we can get through. But I just picked up these three particular models because 8 Steps for Leading Change by Kotter, ADDC's change model by Prosci, they're very, very popular, very common. We use them all the time in our coaching. And I wanted to put in Tuckman as well, because the stages of team development could also be seen as a change model. The way we think about it is as a change model. Just excuse me for 1 second. We are doing this live and we've just got someone at the door, so I won't be 1 second. Okay, I'm back with you. I'm in the office and we've got the door locked, but there's someone there, so Sonia's looking after it. Okay, so as I said, we're doing this live, so apologies for that. If you are new to the Coaching Cafe, I want to say welcome. We are all about creating a community, sharing learned experiences, having thought-provoking conversations. And if you are a regular, as many of you are, welcome back. I love these Friday lunchtime sessions. It's something, as I said, a bit of certainty at the moment. It's our chance to share our ideas, have thought-provoking conversations, etc. So I'll launch straight into our ideas today. If you'd like to interact, as always, just pop a message in the chat box. And this is not just about me, saying what I think. It's actually really a great opportunity to hear from the experience that we have on the line as well. So before we launch, if I was mentioning it at our webinar last week, that if you really want to procrastinate and spend some time in a funny space, you could just type in working from home cartoons and you can have a big laugh. So I just want to acknowledge that a lot of you are working from home. There's a lot going on from you, and I hope that this is not like you, that you're not feeling frazzled and completely out of control. I know it's a big change for people, particularly this week, because in Victoria, for example, a lot of the schools have gone back this week. So people are managing children or other people's expectations if you don't have children, etc. So I just wanted to take a moment out and acknowledge that we've all got a lot going on, and we might talk about a bit of that at the end of our webinar as well. It was always quite interesting to me, like a couple of months ago, I might have been coaching executives who said, I really need a day at home just to focus and finish this project. And of course now that has come to fruition big time. So anyway. So the first model I want to pick up and have a look at with you is Kotter's 8-step model for change. So back in, I think it's 1995, John Kotter wrote a book called Leading Change, and he outlined his 8-step model for change. I have always thought of Kotter, and a lot of you have done the Certificate 4 program, so you'll be thinking about this as well. I've always seen Kotter as not just an 8-step linear model. I was doing more research on Kotter recently, and actually I got picked up in my thinking because he actually intended it to be you must follow these steps in order. And that's actually been one of the big criticisms, I think, of that original work. But then more recently, over the last few years, it's come out looking a bit different. The message has been a bit different. But for me, Kotter was never really, for me and for our clients, never really a 8-step linear model, but definitely steps that you should not look if you're introducing change. So what I was more interested in, and this is where I'd love you to dive in and have a think with me, is in this time of change that we're going through now, is Kotter even relevant? Is there anything in this model that we actually go, yeah, that's still relevant? So we are in the change right now. We're experiencing the change. How does this Kotter model actually help us? Kotter was originally designed as, you know, before you go and do a change process, these are the steps. And as you're doing change, these are the steps you must work through. But I've always seen it as a model that you implement before, during, and after, and particularly during the change process as well. So that's where I wanted to have a discussion with you. So I wanted to drill down nice and quick into each of the steps. And as you might know, we actually built some coaching questions around the different steps, and I just pulled them out straight out of the Certificate for Workplace and Business Coaching program to have a look at it. And these are the kind of questions that in step one create a sense of urgency. So the first step with Kotter was create a sense of urgency. And the questions we thought about were, at the time, were, you know, what are you trying to achieve? What's driving the need for change? How urgent is the change? And what's the priority for change? My feeling on this, and I'd be keen to hear what you think, is that there's no need to create a sense of urgency right now, because in our organisations, that sense of urgency for a lot of organisations and a lot of people is there. And it's there because of what the environment, what's happening in our environment, what's happening with our teams and people right now. So for me, it's no need to create a sense of urgency. It's more for me about appreciating the sense of urgency, appreciating what changes are going on and what the priorities are right now, and coming back to what are you trying to achieve? So what are we trying to achieve right now? What are our priorities? And where are those priorities coming from? So it might not just be the external environment that's driving a need for change. We have got changes going on in our organisations already that were happening way before the current environment. So I think this step is still useful. The key questions we're asking is about what are we trying to achieve during this time? Have our priorities changed, and what have they changed to? And that's where we need to be flexible and adaptable. So let me know what you think about that as we go. Step two, form a powerful or guiding coalition. I think this step is still really important. So as we are now facing the changes that we're facing, who needs to be involved? What will their roles be? How do we get a representative sample to make sure that we're doing this the way that we need to be doing it, looking after everybody? This step was originally about, okay, we're going to go and do a change. Who needs to be involved? How do we get a representative sample? But I think when we're thinking about being in the change right now, and we're going to initiate changes like work from home or whatever it might be, who needs to be involved? How do we keep people involved in the change? Who are the people that are going to lead the organisation through this change period that we're going through? Diana says, I think the key factor is that all organisations are going through change. Yes. So who's going to actually lead the organisation through these different changes that are going on, and what will their roles be at the time? So it might be just, well, all the managers, that's, you know, it's going to be all of them have to lead their people. But it's interesting for me to think about, you know, whether a powerful coalition is required. Some organisations have actually got a team that's specifically working on COVID-19, the response to COVID. And so a number of organisations have got a specific powerful guiding coalition of people that are working on that topic and helping people manage through it. So it's interesting how we put that together. Jody, thank you. Yeah, thanks for jumping in. It's great. Jody says, I think the model can be useful to ensure that leaders are reminded to look at the broader environment and the issues. When we're having so much focus put on by the media and political leaders on COVID, yes, I agree with you. So ensuring that we look at the broader environment, look at the issues that are going on, and then look at also the internal environment, obviously, and how people are responding. Catherine says, I think the sense of urgency creates pressure, and this goes against creativity and flexibility. Yes, I'm really pleased that you mentioned that, because creating that sense of urgency, Kotter originally said, you know, what is the burning platform? And I don't know, I don't think we need a burning platform right now. I think what we need is more of a focus on what we need to achieve, how we're going to do that together as a team, how we're going to work together as a team. Yeah, thank you. And a sense of urgency that creates unexpected, you know, too much pressure on people, I agree, goes against their creativity and their flexibility. Yeah, thank you. So creating a vision for the change. So this was originally, as Cotter suggested, you know, we need to create a vision. You need to be able to communicate that vision. You should practice in front of the mirror, your vision speech. And I'm like, really? You know, what's the shared vision? What links everyone to the vision? These are great questions. I was reflecting on this, thinking about what is it we really want and what's the direction we're going to take. So vision can be different things, I think, during this kind of time. For me, and what I've been picking up amongst our clients, is it's about giving people clarity to the best of our ability and thinking about the direction and the clarity that people need. We know things are going to be different. So what is it we actually want? And thinking about that. And so the vision might be at the top level. Our vision is to continue to serve our clients and be the best, deliver the best quality services, etc. Or it might be something down the levels as well. And Jonathan, thank you for picking that up as well. He says, often we can forget how to play to our strengths in a time of crisis. And that's very important at this stage. Yes, I 100% agree. I've actually been reflecting on my strengths, going, what strengths now am I going to bring to this situation? Yeah, thank you. And he says, how is the vision aligned to the company and the person's values is important in creating that vision. Yeah, so you think about what's going on for individuals, what's going on for teams. How do we align what's happening for people through to what the organisation's vision is? And the organisation's vision and values, we've seen a lot of this come out, actually, and it's been really pleasing to me to see organisations go back to their core and go back to their core vision and their core values and say, this is what we're going to be about as organisations. And there's been a lot of people, a lot of organisations actually bringing that through their media campaigns as well. And I'd like to think it's not just, you know, I'd like to think it's real, actually. It's not just a media kind of stunt. Yeah. Bridge is on the line. Thanks, Bridge. So we're going to benefit from her experience as well. She says, while we're focusing on our response to COVID, also the vision the vision of the recovery process and how we can adapt and thrive. So, yeah. So what's our vision for what we want, how we'd like it to be now, how we're going to work through now, and then what's our vision in terms of recovery and where we're going? Thank you. And welcome, Chris. It's fine. We're right into it, but you can join in as you go. So communicating the change, like this is probably the biggest one, isn't it? You know, do we throw our coaching models out? Not this step, definitely not. This is a pretty obvious one, isn't it? But we've been doing a lot of this in the coaching, talking about what do we need to communicate, what's the best way to do it, who needs to communicate it, what the key messages are, when is the right timing for communication. This has been very interesting to me whilst we're in this change. I always kind of take a balcony position, and I'm very interested in what's happening at the moment in terms of who's communicating, what are they communicating, and definitely during times of crisis and significant change like we're going through, you do need a single source. So, and I don't mean barbecue sauce or tomato sauce, you need a single source of the communication. And what I've actually been pleased to see is that, for example, our Prime Minister has been the key person, and maybe one or two others that have been the key single sources of the communication. And then of course you've got the states, etc. But there hasn't been a million different ministers trying to speak up, and the opposition hasn't been, you know, trying to take the forefront and things like that. So communicating the change, who's the best person, this is a really, really important part of any change model, but definitely important right now, I feel. Jody says, yeah, thank you for jumping in on that one. She says, a great example of creating a vision that can bring people along is Jacinta Ardern in her address to New Zealand, when she gave people tasks to do that were positive, such as be kind to each other and look after your neighbours. Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very good example of excellent communication as well. So I'm not sure if you've seen, but she's got a Facebook Live going on, and she's actually there in her office, and she's answering questions, and she's communicating to people using all different mediums as well. But it is her as a single communication point, and that gives people confidence, particularly when it's your Prime Minister that's doing that. So Lynn, thank you for jumping in. She says she agrees a single source is important. Our CEO runs a weekly all-staff briefing with the key execs rotating in as his guest speakers. So thank you. That's a fantastic example of exactly what we're talking about. So the CEO is running the weekly staff briefing with the key execs rotating in as guest speakers. So here's such and such to talk on this topic, as opposed to, you know, any of you go off talking about whatever you want anytime. So yeah, thank you. So far, Kotter's looking good, isn't it? We're halfway through. I'll keep us moving as well, because I want to cover the other models. But so far, I think Kotter is standing up with modifications. Removing the obstacles. Now, this was really interesting to me. I'd be keen to hear what you think. We were asked questions around this, like, what are the obstacles? How do we overcome these obstacles? What's holding you back? What options do you have? I think removing the obstacles right now is a really important step, or really important part of what we're going through. How do we remove obstacles that might get in our way of actually high performing or doing our best performance, given we're working from home? And that might be physical objects, or just getting things out of the way that are holding people back. There's been a number of organizations that have run out actually and purchased thousands of laptops and dongles, and to overcome the obstacle of, I can't work from home because I don't have the right technology. So the IT departments, you know, shout out to them too, that have been working overtime to actually give people the resources they need. And I see that as overcoming obstacles, overcoming the things that are getting in the way of people being able to do what they need to do. So I think this is quite a useful thing, and I think at this time we need a lot more flexibility to go, all right, you know, that's getting in your way, let's just sort that out, kind of thing. I know people, colleagues and friends have said their workplaces delivered monitors to the home, and chairs and things that they need. So I think that's a really good example of removing obstacles, just to enable people to do what they need to do the best way they can. Great, thank you. So step number 6 is creating short-term wins. And so we say, what are the short-term wins? How can we celebrate? Who's responsible? What would it mean to achieve that win? What's the first step you can take? So the short-term wins is interesting. I'd be keen to hear what you think. Is it possible to still have short-term wins? Is it possible to still celebrate short-term wins? My feeling is yes. We need to be focusing on what's going well. A short-term win might be that, you know, a certain team is up and running now. Let's not, you know, drop everything and have cake because you know, because we can drop everything and have cake. It's about, I think, not so much like celebrating, but maybe just acknowledging that, look how far we've come in a very short period of time. A month ago or 2 months ago, none of those people out there were working from home. Now they're fully functioning, answering calls from clients, taking 4 times the volume from clients that they had before. So I think those kind of things are worth just acknowledging people's efforts. I think this is where this kind of create short-term wins comes into this different thinking for me. Oh, Sonia, that's a fantastic example. Thank you. So she said, we celebrated our payroll team running their first payroll off-site. Like, wow! I think that is significant. You know, Absolutely. That's a really great example. Thank you. Stuff that they've never had to do before. I just can't imagine the IT systems and everything they had to set up and to make it happen. Yeah. And the team is, you know, they're all off site. So there's probably a stack of communication that's got to go on, you know, across all channels to make that happen. Whereas originally I could have just turned to you next to me at the desk and said, what do you think about this? So yeah. Tanya says, yes, I agree. Recognising and rewarding staff efforts right now is essential, particularly if you think about our health workforce. Yeah, and they've been very good actually, that acknowledgement as well. Jody says, absolutely, we need to keep up the energy and morale, even if it's only within small wins. Yeah. Jonathan says, I'd say yes, because it means we're building confidence in the team and their way of working. Yeah, so these short-term wins and celebrating short-term wins is about building confidence as well. Yeah, I agree. Thank you. And Bridget says, yes, it's about flexibility in our ways of operating and connecting. So acknowledging that as a short-term win, that we have been able to be flexible, we have been able to do these things, I think is really important. Yeah. Thank you. Foz says, celebrating wins, acknowledging effort cannot be underestimated to maintain momentum. Yeah, thank you. A good example was the government acknowledging the public efforts in combating COVID-19 today. Yes, so it is acknowledging those short-term wins about what we've been able to achieve. Now, the other thing about short-term wins, thanks for mentioning that, Foz, because you'll notice the other thing the government's doing. What Kotter talks about is, and I love this bit about short-term wins, he talks about don't herald the victory too early. And in short-term wins, that's one of the key points that he actually talks about. What happens is okay, so we've gotten through Easter and the rates of infection haven't skyrocketed. The government is currently saying, so we've done well, but it's not the time to be complacent. It's not the time to take the foot off the accelerator and be complacent. So I like that message because it's about, yes, we've had a short-term win. We've gotten through Easter and everything's going well so far. And there's lots of metrics that are showing that we're going well. But don't herald the victory too early, because then we'd be facing a completely different situation. So thank you for bringing that up, Foz, because it helps me remember that point as well. Diana says, celebrate the small things also, not only the big things. Yes, I think that's really important now at the moment, isn't it? So celebrating those little things that actually are going well. And, you know, I've been really focusing on those things that actually bring joy and happiness. You know, I was walking down the street and, you know, I saw this, I, you know, social distanced as I walked down the street there's a mother with a baby and he's bouncing around, you know, in one of those baby, you know, baby carriers, you know, when you put it on your front. And his baby had the biggest smile and I just thought, oh, it's just the cutest thing. So, you know, it's kind of just picking up on the small things and the joy and the small wins, I think, is really quite sweet. A simple thank you is very powerful. I agree with you, Diana. Thank you. Amy, thanks for jumping in. She says, we have a chat group at work where we talk about what we've gained over this period. Yeah, so what have been the benefits? What have we actually gained over this period? And some of lovely responses have come through too. So I think that's our role, isn't it? It's not about skipping through the daisies and seeing kumbaya and trying to be like super, super, super positive. It's about recognizing those things that are bringing us joy, recognizing the things where we have actually gained, where the advantages are as well. Thank you. 7 is building on the change. I think we're going to be doing that, you know, over the next few months. So what we've actually gained from this, picking up on Amy's point, how do we actually use that to move forward? Will be some very interesting conversations coming out of this, for sure. Catherine says she notices that people notice each other in the streets more. Yes, and in a positive way. So there's less indifference. Yeah, I've noticed that as well. People smiling, acknowledging each other, that kind of thank you for distancing yourself, and, you know, yes, I'm exercising like you. Yeah, that kind of acknowledgement's going on as well. Yeah, much more kind of positive. Yeah, whereas previously just everyone just ignored each other. Yeah. So building on the change, I think that we will be building on the change. Thinking about what's different, what are we going to keep, what are we going to go, what's going to be different, that'll be a big conversation. And what I'm going to be very interested in as well, I imagine you all might be as well, is what gets anchored into the corporate culture going forward. So step 7 and step 8 are to be continued, aren't they? But it'll be very interesting to me about what does get anchored into the corporate culture. What do we continue to embed? What's the difference? Where to from here? How do we create sustainability about those things that we want to keep that have come out of this period? It's going to be very interesting. Great. So there you go. So what do we give Kotter? I reckon we give Kotter a big tick. If you think about the themes that Kotter is actually brought forward and the coaching questions we might ask around these steps. Yes, we have to adapt the model because it's not an 8-step linear model. But I think using Kotter to think about the different things that are going on right now from a change point of view, and delving into each of the steps in conversations and coaching conversations we have with our teams, I think is really quite useful. So no, we're not throwing Kotter out, but we're having a bit of a deeper dive into what does it mean right now, I think is a great idea. Alrighty, how are we going for time? So we've got a couple of minutes. Take a screenshot of this if you like. This is Kotter with all those coaching questions actually put on the one slide. It's a bit tiny, that's why I kind of broke it down. But if you want to take a screenshot, you're more than welcome just to get it all on the one slide. Alrighty, let's talk about ADDC. So ProSci, you can go to the ProSci website there. ADDC is a 5-step, not a 5-step, it's 5 tangible elements, if you like. They talk about 5 tangible and concrete outcomes that people need in order to achieve lasting change. And their emphasis is on individual change. So organizational change comes from managing individual change. And I wanted to bring ADDC in because it's extremely important model in terms of change. Defense, for example, use it quite a lot. You can be trained in the ADDC model. And it's actually really... so I brought it in because it's extremely popular in terms of organizations that use ADDC when they're thinking about change. And if you think about it, awareness of the need for change, yes, I think we have that. Desire to support the change, question mark. That's the one that's interesting to me. Knowledge of how to change, there's a lot of effort going into to people about providing them with their knowledge and the ability to actually make the changes they need to make right now in order to continue to perform in their job. Reinforcement is going to come later. So for me, I'm not sure about you, but the one that I'm actually interested in terms of ADDC, so I think ADDC still stands up as a change model and something we need to be really thinking about, people have the awareness they need, they have the knowledge of how to go about the changes, the ability to do it, that we're doing work to help reinforce their ability. But what's interesting to me is about that desire to support the changes. And we know that everyone is going to be experiencing different things right now when it comes to change. And people, like for example, working from home, some people I know are like, absolutely, let's do it. Working from home, best thing ever, you know. Others aren't so, don't have that strong desire. They will do it, but they're doing it because they have to, as opposed to what would really work for me is something different. So I think the desire to support the change is interesting. Tell me what you think. I think right now, from a coaching point of view, we need to be going underneath the surface of this to find out what's going on for individuals and what's going on for teams. There'll be affecting the desire will be things like fear, uncertainty. We're getting out of our comfort zone. We've got kids at home now. A number of people are managing the you know, does the spouse or does the partner's time and your time and kids' time and what the kids need and their needs for schooling, etc. And other people are okay because they don't have that going on, but because of that, they've got a whole pile of other things going on. So I'm thinking about, you know, just trying to understand, you know, that people are moving out of their comfort zone. Things that get in the way of supporting the change are things like insufficient knowledge or skills. There's not been enough communication. There's not enough leverage, or they don't really know what's in it for them. I'm not sure that last one is really necessary or happening now, but definitely the uncertainty, the moving out of the comfort zone, they're trying to make it up as we go along, and that's what we have to do. So there's some interesting things here about ADDC, and as I said, I think the one that's pinging for me right now is understanding the desire to support the change, and our need as leaders and managers and coaches to get under the surface and just really connect with people to find out what's happening for them and how that's affecting their ability to embrace the changes that are going on right now. Bridgie says, there will be knowledge within the teams that's valuable for the change process. Yeah, absolutely. So how can we leverage that? She says, how can we bring different knowledge and skills to the change? What a fantastic question. So I think that's a wonderful coaching question, isn't it? That we could put to people going, well, there's different people know different things right now. How can we leverage that? And how can we take advantage of the fact that people are at different levels of the technology curve or whatever it might be. Yeah. Foz says, desire, what's in it for me? Effort versus reward. The vision still needs to be sold. Yeah. So I think that's where we do come back to going, all right, this is what we know right now. This is what the vision is for now. And this is what's in it. Yeah. We're working out what's in it for me and communicating that. Great, thank you. Finally, I know we're going over time, but you can take a screenshot of this if you like. Sorry, I'll just pick up Bridget's comment again. She's saying, understanding that change can be a personal issue too. It's very true for each individual. And so getting a snapshot of each individual is really important. Yeah, as leaders, as managers, as coaches, but also just as human beings connecting with each other. What will be the positive impacts for that individual? What could be the challenges for that person? What support do they need to take on the change? So we just write down those coaching questions that Bridget has given us. Thank you. And run those coaching questions. I absolutely agree with you. Thank you. I can imagine Bridget's absolutely typing furiously now. All these coaching questions going on. Absolutely. So take a screenshot of this if you like. This is the last thing. I know we're going over time, but this is the last model I wanted to just dig deep into. Tuckman, 1965, Tuckman came up with his stages of team development. You know, I mentioned in our webinar last week, 1965, BHP actually struck oil in the Bass Strait for the first time, gas first and then oil. It was the time of the Operational Thunder, so the Vietnam War. It was a time of extreme change. The Rolling Stones released a little song called I Can't Get No Satisfaction. It was the first #1 hit for the Rolling Stones. So it was a time of really significant change, 1965, when Tuckman came up with this model. And there's something in it for me about the time of change that we're going through now. He came up with forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. And adjourning was added later, actually. And I've heard people go, oh, Tuckman, Schmuckman, you know, the old model, it doesn't relate anymore. And I'm like, actually, I think it does. Right now, teams are forming. They're trying to work out what are the ground rules? What are the expectations? What do we need to be aware of? What is it going to look like in this new environment? We need to be doing forming now in our new environments. With the changes that are going on, there's going to be storming going on. People need to work out what's happening. What do we need to communicate? There'll be feedback going on, where there's going to be assumptions being made. And then I think over the next couple of weeks, we're going to see people start to really norm. And then we can talk about what's going well, what's happening, and who knows when we're going to go back to what we had before, or whether we're going back to what we had before. So I think an awareness of Tuckman from a change point of view is really important, particularly on watching forming, storming, norming. How quickly can we as leaders, as coaches and managers get our teams to norming, given what's going on? And are we aware of storming, that they can revert back to storming? So there's some really good coaching we can do around that. I'm in my executive coaching asking everyone about forming. So what are you doing around expectations? What ground rules are you setting? What flexibility are you giving people? How are you appreciating that flexibility? You know, what's happening around that? Because we need to recognize that this is going on right now. Flavia says, good old Tuckman. I've noticed that there's a real element of adjourning and mourning for what used to be the normal. Thank you. That's really interesting. Yeah, so we're adjourning and mourning for what used to be normal. Yes, yeah. I'm not sure what it's going to be once all the restrictions are lifted as well. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of hugging, isn't there? I think. For me, there is going to be anyway. Yeah. Alrighty. So just a couple of things to watch out for. This is what we're picking up, and these are mostly everything that you've been sharing. So thank you so much. Watch out for people who are extending the workday. We really need some separation between work and home. We're watching out for people's health and mental health and their well-being. We're watching out for what we call out of character behavior. So this is where someone might just flare up out of the blue, and it can be because of stresses and pressures and lack of sleep. It's out of character. So anything we can do there as leaders and coaches and as managers to be aware of that, have conversations with people. The big message, I've attended a couple of webinars from like the Black Dog Institute and Beyond Blue, and they're talking about managing expectations and flexibility and adaptability. So maybe you do have to take a couple of hours out during the day because you're tagging with your partner looking after the kids, but fully knowing that you're going to pick up those couple of hours later at night. Now, that's the type of flexibility and managing expectations that we need to be aware of. I think on top of that, we need to be aware that that's actually making it a very, very long day for some people as well. For some people, that's normal. You know, for others, it's actually quite different. So just having a discussion about expectations, flexibility, how we're adapting, I think is the best thing we can be doing right now. And of course, keeping up your physical activity. You might, I know there's you know, you might have a buddy that you're actually texting or making sure that that activity is keeping up, popping a multivitamin if you need to. You know, we've got to be looking after ourselves. So all of those things I think are really important. Alrighty, look, it's been great being able to share these ideas with you. I think our summary is no, now's not the time to chuck out our coaching models. It's actually a time to reflect on them and think about how can we use these models as a mechanism for communication? How can we use it to trigger excellent coaching questions that we've been doing here on the line together? How can we use the models to actually help people move and navigate the changes that we've got going on now? So I'm a bit more of a no, don't throw out the models. Let's see how they're applicable and how we can use them in our communications and for ourselves to work through the changes as well. So thank you for your contribution. Register for our next webinar. We do have a mental health a webinar going on and mental health training coming up. So you can ask us about that. And if you've done your certificate for in workplace and business coaching and you're keen to upgrade, we've got that ability right now as well. So if you've got a spare little bit of cash you want to throw towards an upgrade, we'd be very happy to help you with that as well. So there you go. Any final thoughts or comments before we finish off? I'd be really keen to hear. Chris, thank you. He says, coaching has never been more important. Thank you. What a great way of thinking about our roles here. He says, coaching's never been more important. He's been running at least 6 half complimentary sessions every day for the last month with SMEs on the Sunshine Coast. Thanks, Chris. So that's wonderful. Coaching people through these times is super important. I totally agree with you. Helping people work out what are their options. Even just helping people work out what their reality is right now and some sort of acceptance about what is happening now. And then given the reality, what options do we have? Even if we go back to the great basic grow model there, I think is so valuable. I agree with you. Yeah, drop us a line about those coaching cafes you're doing, and we can pop them on the Facebook side as well. Thanks, Diana. She says, excellent. Thank you, Tanya. Thanks, Flavia. And yeah, thank you to all of you for jumping in. I just love it when we've got the experience coming to the line as well. Thank you. Alrighty. So I'll stay on the line for a couple of more minutes. So if you've got other thoughts and comments, please jump in. It's always great to chat. And if not, we'll catch up with you at our next webinar where we're going to be doing a lot of troubleshooting and brainstorming together. And I really look forward to that as well.